Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our third webinar for our Building Resilience in Forage and Livestock Systems series. So this is a collaborative effort between Clemson University and the USDA Southeast Climate Hub, and it aims to address practical strategies and resources for enhancing the resilience of forage and livestock systems under extreme weather conditions. So in this third webinar, we'll be focusing on the USDA Southeast Climate Hub and NRCS resources for producers. So just before we get started today, I'm gonna share just a few housekeeping points. So please keep your microphone muted at all times so it does not interfere with our guest speakers' presentations. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentations, so please save your questions for later, for the designated time as well. This presentation is recorded, and all links from the previous presentations and also this presentation will be shared with everybody. I just shared the links from the previous presentations on the chat, and also you should have received an email this morning with those links as well. So without further ado, let's get started. Our first speaker today is Alexia Padilla. She's an outreach resource assistant with the USDA Southeast Climate Hub. She received her bachelor's in sustainability from San Diego State University, followed by her master's in conservation ecology from the University of Michigan. She has a background in working with farming communities around the US and internationally, and she joined the hub with the goal of providing support for producers to build resilience to disturbance within the Southeast. Welcome, Alexia. It's great to have you today here. So let's get started.
Hello. Does everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Alexia Padilla, and I'm an outreach resource assistant with the Southeast Climate Hub. So I'm here today to share a little bit about the opportunities and the resources the Southeast Climate Hub has, as well as with NRCS followed. So I just wanted to go ahead and thank you all for being here and kick it off by sharing some resources on our hurricane preparation and recovery guides, followed by our drought guides as well. So a little bit about the hubs themselves. In 2014, 10 regional hubs were developed throughout the U.S. with the intention to increase resilience to working lands to weather variability through adaptive management. So we're here to help support producers adapt to changing environments and to provide resources to communities to reduce the impacts of disturbance. We in the Southeast work on providing resources on soil salinization, hurricane preparedness, drought, emerging forest threats, and more. So our hub represents 11 states, from Virginia to Florida to the Carolinas, each state with its own unique concerns and ecosystems. So a large portion of our jobs is interacting with communities to understand how we can best support you and what resources would be most beneficial. The hubs were initially developed due to an increase in billion-dollar weather disasters throughout the U.S. So in 2024, we had 27 hit the U.S., from droughts to hurricanes and tornadoes. And the hub's goal is to help producers prepare for disasters, but also to help minimize those losses. In the Southeast, we experienced, Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, and Debbie in 2024. And one of these disturbances, the Southeast, is no stranger to are hurricanes. So after assessing the damage of the 2024 hurricane season, it's clear that the hurricane impacts can reach far beyond coastal communities. Historically, coastal communities were the ones who felt that they needed to be most prepared for hurricanes, compared to inland and mountain communities. However, in 2024, Hurricane Helene was slow-moving and hit the inland communities such as Asheville, North Carolina, a mountain community 277 miles from the closest coast. So NOAA predicts that in 2025, we will have another dynamic and above average hurricane season, likely producing stronger, slower moving, and more frequent storms than typical years. So it's important that everybody is well prepared for hurricane season and has a plan to best protect themselves, their land, and their communities. And one of our most popular tools, very relevant during this season, will be our Hurricane Preparation and Recovery Guides. So this guide was made to help producers build resilience, plan, and recover from hurricanes. This was co-produced by the U.S. Forest Service and university extensions throughout the Southeast to help provide guides for the 8 coastal states, including the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, on 25 economically important commodities, including beef, forage, dairy, strawberries. And each guide includes 4 sections, starting off with building a resilient operation. This includes important factors to consider when starting off your operation. We move into section 2 and 3, where we start to consider long-term and short-term maintenance and preparedness. So we start thinking annually to a few days prior to a hurricane. This includes action items to complete, any harvest, updating your emergency plan, removing any hazards, things like that. And this is important to consider at every scale of operation, either if that's your backyard or if you have a few acres of land. And the last stage is post-hurricane recovery. So how to assess damages, documentation to hopefully minimize those losses. And something important to document from your crop damage is your crop damage for crop insurance and crop loss programs, but also documenting pre-hurricane as well, making sure we have those before and after photos to be able to document the loss that has occurred over time. And each guide will have state and commodity specific resources, as well as extension agent, extension and universities, USDA resources as well. So when we're thinking of safely preparing your operation for a future hurricane, there's a few things we need to consider. For a forested operation, for example, creating a complete inventory of your forest is important. So knowing your species, knowing the number of trees, tree diameters, heights. This can help provide an estimated dollar amount value for your forest that can help provide documentation for forest condition prior to the damage caused by high winds or hurricanes. Other important factors to consider is having an emergency plan, knowing your crop and your water management systems, knowing your resources and your contacts list. Who are you able to contact in the case a disaster occurs? And to give a little context into the topic of this series, I wanted to explore a little bit of what preparedness considerations are involved for a forage system. So when starting your operation, a pasture location is important. Separating the pasture from densely forested areas to avoid trees falling on livestock. This doesn't necessarily mean to avoid trees or shade on a pasture, but to consider its density. Variety selection. When choosing forage species, consider species on their tolerance of floods and increased soil salinity. That follows saltwater intrusion, especially coastal states. But also the flood tolerance. Based on conditions, flood damage post-hurricane can vary based on the water flow, but also how long plants have been underwater. So areas prone to waterlogging conditions should also consider planting forage species tolerant to waterlogging, but also with that increased soil salinity. So here on the side, we have an example of different forage species and their relative salt tolerance. So here at the top, we'll have species that are a little bit more tolerant, moderately tolerant. We'll have barley and cereal rye, wheat, and then at the bottom that are a little bit more sensitive, we're going to see the bluegrass, Kentucky bluegrass, things like that. So what are some things that we can do to prepare for a hurricane? So go ahead and put in the chat here, maybe things that you've already considered, maybe have already implemented, or things that are starting to come to mind right now of what you could do potentially. Some of these things could be your infrastructure. So knowing the drainage systems on your property, ensuring culverts and ditches are cleaned out, machinery inventory, so moving your equipment to a secure location and having sufficient fuel, or any crop harvest. Is there any crops that we can harvest last minute before the storm hits to avoid any additional losses there? keeping your animals protected on elevated ground, and making sure we have an emergency plan with our family members, with our team members, staying in communication, gathering materials. Are there any trees that are at risk, potentially of falling over? Should we consider planting trees as wind breaks as well to protect maybe other crops or infrastructure? And our water management, irrigation pumps, keeping those elevated to avoid any potential contamination from flooding. And previous presenters at our other sessions provided some great tips on hurricane preparedness for livestock, horses as well. And these guides were a great resource to understand important considerations when preparing for a hurricane, but also to learn post-hurricane how we can rebuild resilience and to help protect ourselves for the future. These guides can be found on our website and are also free and accessible to anyone. So I would recommend taking a look at that. We'll go ahead and include those links during this presentation as well. So you all can see what different types of resources that we have based on your commodity, based on your states as well. So I do recommend taking a look at that. And we'll go ahead and transition into our drought guides that are pretty similar. And these ones are in the process of being published. So this is a little sneak peek because they have yet to be published, but they hopefully will be published soon. So I'm here to talk a little bit about what will be included in these guides. And we're currently in the works for 14 commodities, including beef and forage, but also soybean and citrus and corn. So the drought guides, similar to the hurricane guides, will be divided into 3 sections: building a resilient operation, adaptive actions during drought, and drought recovery. And we want these guides to be a resource for anyone just starting out with an operation and want to know what factors to consider. Maybe land that's already experiencing drought and needs some guidance on what to do or who to contact, or post-drought and understanding your options for recovery. So what is a resilient operation? It adopts practices that helps mitigate potential drought and its effects. So building resiliency on your land requires knowledge of current and forecasted weather conditions, but also your experiencing managing your lands is an important factor to know how your crops respond to stress of dry conditions. And we all know, you know your fields best. And the guide will go through multiple aspects of considerations and actions to make during drought. This includes planning for drought, monitoring drought, crop considerations such as water requirements, variety selection, and pest and disease concerns. And this will discuss harvesting and soil considerations, water management, such as irrigation and record keeping. The guide will also include tables that provide crop management decisions and resources based on what drought impacts you're experiencing throughout the growing process, whether that's reduced soil moisture or reduced yield. And in the appendix, the guide will also include seasonal decision tables that we have here, similar to the bottom, that'll break up into different decision topics and lead you to decision considerations or information needs to make decisions, as well as resources as to who to contact for these decisions. And finally, in drought recovery, communication with your local extension agents offers professional assistance in implementing crop management strategies. So early and constant communication, even pre-drought with your crop insurance provider, can reduce the impacts later of drought, but also helping the efficiency of processing insurance and disaster claims. And a very important part of preparation is documentation, as I've mentioned before, but written records are extremely important. So keeping a notebook during the recovery process to describe the work that you did and recording any expenses, keeping a list of names as to what was discussed with conversations with insurance agents or federal agency contacts. Will help in the recovery efforts later use as documentations for disaster assistance programs. And we'll go ahead and have NRCS speak a little bit later today as well, but NRCS is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And they're a great resource that many of you are likely already aware of and familiar with, but your local NRCS agents can help with on-the-ground management assistance and support. And the goal of NRCS is to help support the resilience of agriculture by addressing priority resource concerns and conservation practices. So their services help producers reduce soil erosion, enhance water resources, improve water quality, but also to reduce the damage caused by disasters. And NRCS has many assistance programs that can be a great and more localized resource in helping build resilience to your land. And these guides will include state-specific resources and contact information, as well as commodity-specific. And the guide will also include steps on how to work with NRCS on soil conservation plan to help improve drought resilience, lessen drought impacts with water conservation and soil health practices. And finally, the drought will include 2 customizable templates for a drought plan and drought list, context list. So the drought plan should ask you basic information, your name, your contact info, but also your crops that are being grown, your anticipated harvest dates, any information as to your management area. But it'll also have important considerations during drought to ask yourself, such as, how are we monitoring conditions? Are we monitoring soil moisture and crop stress? If there's no rainfall, how frequent will we need to irrigate? These are important questions to ask yourself to help you prepare and to set up a plan for when drought hits. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to me today. It was a pleasure to have the opportunity to share a little bit about our resources that we have. And I hope the drought and the hurricane guides will be a helpful resource for you in building resilience. Next, we'll have Renee share a little bit about our other resources that the Hub works closely with. But I do encourage you all to take a look at our website for additional tools and resources. And we're always looking to hear from communities as to what resources they believe would be most helpful for them or the communities that they do work for. So feel free to share any of that in the chat or contact me and Renee with any questions, but also to share your own experiences as well. What are some new things that maybe you've been experiencing on your land or you've heard communities talk about as a concern? We're always looking to hear more from people as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lexa. So now we're going to be moving to our second speaker. So our second speaker is Renee Ness. She's a climate outreach and education ORISE fellow with the USDA Southeast Climate Hub. She's passionate about engaging communities and supports their efforts to build resilience to climate variability. With a background in conservation ecology and a master's in urban and environmental planning, Renee focuses on making natural resources information accessible, actionable, and community-centered. She also serves as a tribal coordinator for the updated Silvex of North America and has led listening sessions that uplifted Indigenous knowledge and perspectives. Without further ado, welcome, Renee. We look forward to hearing from you today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So it looks like we have the correct presentation up. So thank you so much, Michael, for doing that. Okay, well, moving forward, I'll be saying next slide so you can move through my presentation. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Renee Nez, and I'm the ORISE Climate Outreach and Education Fellow for the USDA Southeast Climate Hub. And today I'll be covering a few decision support tools that can support farmers, producers, and ag extension agents. Next slide. I'll be giving an overview of 3 climate tools developed by the USDA Southeast Climate Hub and its partners. So these tools support professionals across agriculture, land management, and forestry in planning for and adapting to climate risks. So these tools include agroclimate, the adaptation workbook, and the saltwater intrusion and salinization manual. Next slide. Okay. Next. Next slide. Oh, okay. All right. So Michael said that he advanced, but the screen is a bit slow. Okay. All right. Thank you. We see it now. So AgroClimate is a free online resource that helps farmers manage climate risk. It's maintained by the Southeast Climate Consortium and the University of Florida. It brings climate science into practice so farmers can make informed decisions about weather, crops, and timing. And the main goal of these tools is to help producers reduce production risks and increase productivity. And this tool, it's regularly used during training events for county extension faculty and during workshops with agriculture producers. Next slide. So AgroClimate has various interactive tools that are categorized by these five different topics on the slide. And it also provides forecasts for precipitation, drought, and hurricanes. And the website also provides state summaries. And within these state summaries, they emphasize on impacts of agriculture and water resources. And these reports can be found for Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. So overall, these tools help reduce unnecessary pesticide use, low costs, and improve crop yields. Next slide. So the El Nino Southern Oscillation, also known as ENSO, is a recurring climate pattern involving changes in ocean temperatures and atmospheric pressure in the tropical Pacific Ocean. So the three phases are the El Nino, El Niña, and the neutral phase between the two. So these phases influence the global pattern, such as rainfall and temperature variability. So within agroclimate, we can review the total rainfall, the maximums, the minimums of each of the temperatures for each month. And you can also select the ENSO phases within it too. And different for farmers and producers, they can use this information to make informed decisions about planting dates, crop selection, and irrigation planning. Next slide. So in addition to the website, AgroClimate has its own workbook that provides introductory information on climate effects. In the agriculture industry, it introduces the tools mentioned in the previous slide, and it also provides activities to demonstrate the tools and its functions. Next slide. So agroclimate can be super helpful to livestock and forage systems because it provides climate data and tools that help farmers and ranchers make informed decisions. So for example, it can offer seasonal forecasts that help predict rainfall, temperature trends, which are crucial for managing pasture growth and planning grazing schedules. And it can also help in identifying drought conditions early so farmers can adjust their feeding schedules or make other decisions proactively. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the next tool, which is the adaptation workbook. Next slide. So the Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science Adaptation Workbook is a planning guide for land managers and conservation. It helps them anticipate climate change impacts and plan ways to build resilience. So this tool is especially important for forests stressed by changing weather patterns. So although this workbook is designed for forests and natural resource managers in mind, it also addresses the needs for those involved in agriculture, wildlife management, and grassland adaptation. And Some of the topics covered within the adaptation workbook would be urban forest health, forested watershed, and a few others. Next slide. So when using the workbook, you'll start by entering basic information such as maps, existing management plans, and some baseline data about your project area. And this tool will generate information about how climate change might impact your area. And it's very much about tailoring your strategies to fit your specific context. So you'll be encouraged to reflect on whether your current goals and practices are still resilient under future climate conditions. So the workbook flows by a step-by-step process, as you can see in these two pictures to the right. So first, it helps you assess climate risk and to think about how it may affect your land or operation. Then it walks you through identifying what's valuable and what actions you can take. After this, you can then move forward by evaluating the pros and cons to different strategies and decide on custom actions that fit your goals. And the last thing, it helps you build a plan to monitor whether those actions make a difference. So once you go through all of these steps, you'll end up with a detailed, customized adaptation plan. So you can use this plan as a standalone document, or you can add this to your existing plan for your property. And the main goal is to give you something useful and actionable, and something that fits your specific needs. Next slide. So for example, in agriculture systems, they may already be performing poorly due to stressors like insect pests, pathogens, and competing species, which make agriculture commodities more susceptible to impacts from climate change. So if we're looking at the approach 2, which is to reduce the impacts of insect pests and pathogens on crops, we can use different tactics that can help assist in these areas. So for example, we can enhance the use of integrated pest management, or we can also improve a rapid response plan for regional monitoring efforts to allow for targeted control for new species before they become established. Next slide. So for building resilience within this tool, farmers and ranchers can identify how climate variability might impact their operations and come up with custom strategies to keep their system resilient. And for livestock producers, this means being able to plan for changes in forage availability, water resources, and even animal health. Next slide. Okay, so we're going into our final tool. Next slide. The Saltwater Intrusion and Salinization Manual addresses a growing problem caused by saltwater intrusion and soil salinity. So the rising sea levels, storms, and droughts are making soil saltier. This causes crop yield declines, marsh mitigation, and ecosystem stress. So this guide does not predict the rate of sea level rise or soil salinization, but instead it provides mitigation and adaptation practices that can reduce soil salinization impacts on productivity. Next slide. So salinization happens when salts accumulate in soil. It can occur naturally, but human activity and climate variability can increase the risk. So to identify salinization, farmers should look for signs like stunted plant growth, leaf burn, and a white crust on the soil surface. These indicators suggest that salt levels are high enough to affect crop health and yield. So early identification is crucial for a timely intervention. Next slide. So mitigation involves methods to reduce salt levels in the soil. So this can include improving irrigation practices to flush out salts, using soil amendments like gypsum, and ensuring proper drainage to prevent salt buildup. And these steps protect soil health and crop productivity. And lastly, adaptation strategies focus on long-term changes that help farmers cope with salinization. And this can include planting soil tolerant varieties and adjusting planting schedules to avoid the saline conditions. And these adaptations can maintain sustainable agriculture practices in the face of changing environmental conditions. Next slide. So as sea level rises, salinization will increase, especially in low-lying coastal areas, and this can degrade soil and reduce land productivity and affect water quality. So the guide provides monitoring and mitigation strategies to help farmers and land managers adapt. Next slide. So in summary, these tools give communities practical ways to respond to climate variability challenges. So agroclimate supports agriculture decision-making. The NIACS adaptation workbook supports forest and natural resource planning, and adds agriculture and wildlife management systems. And the final tool, the soil salinization manual, helps manage the risk of saltwater intrusion. Next slide. Okay, and last slide. Okay. So thank you all so much for your time and attention today. If you have any questions or want to learn more about any of these tools we presented today, please feel free to reach out to me via email. And I also encourage you to visit the USDA Southeast Climate Hub website for more resources and tools. But thanks again, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Renee. So our next speaker is going to be Julius George. He's the Assistant State Conservationist for programs with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, the NRCS, in North Carolina. With over 23 years of experience, he brings deep expertise in conservation planning, natural resources programs, and leadership at the field, area, and state levels. His work has supported program delivery across Georgia and North Carolina, including key initiatives like the EQUIP Conservation Stewardship Program and the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. Welcome, Julius. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and we look forward to hear your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Silva. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you guys for the opportunity to present to you all today to provide information about NRCS and what we are able to offer both landowners as well as producers. So with that said, we'll go ahead and prepare to move forward. Next slide, please. For many of you that may not be familiar with who NRCS is, NRCS is an agency that was developed and created back in 1935 as a result of the Dust Bowl. And as a result of it, an agency was formed to actually provide technical as well as financial assistance to landowners to help to protect states' natural resources. And we actually conduct and perform that task by providing technical as well as cost sharing assistance to focus on addressing natural resources such as clean water, soil health, clean air, so forth and so on. Our services are available not only to just individuals, but also groups, communities, and even counties to make sure that we can assist them in actually preserving those natural resources. Next slide, please. As we proceed, I wanted to kind of highlight and touch bases on some of our most popular assistance that we offer and provide to anyone that seeks our services. First, with our conservation technical assistance, which is a service that we provide no matter what, whether you're interested in financial assistance or not. This service allows NRCS to be able to work with you to identify some natural resource issues that are on your operation, as well as make recommendations to you on how to address those resource concerns by implementing implementing various conservation methods, such as various practices that we have in our actual toolbox. We're also going to touch bases on the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, which we use the acronym EQIP. This program offers financial assistance as well as technical assistance to help landowners address those resource concerns that they've identified, but also provide financial assistance to help implement those practices to eradicate or eliminate those resource concerns has been identified. Lastly, we will discuss briefly the Conservation Stewardship Program, which is a program designed to offer financial assistance to compensate landowners for the great conservation measures that they've already been implementing on their farm, but also encourage them to go to a higher level of management and go further to improve their operation, as well as to prevent some other resources from actually coming about. Next slide, please. With all of our programs and everything that you actually do with NRCS, except for the technical assistance, all landowners are required to meet certain eligibility requirements. So what this slide does is identify what those eligibility requirements are, and that will qualify you for our programs, but also help us to engage and actually make sure that you have certain records on file. With that, you must be an agricultural producer, meaning it doesn't matter if you have cropland, pasture land, grazing land, forest land, that's no option. Any of those land uses are eligible for our programs. Also, one of the most critical things is you must establish records with our sister agency, which is the Farm Service Agency. In doing so, you must also maintain and have control of that land for the duration of that term of any contract that NRCS may offer you for financial assistance. Now, having control of land does not necessarily mean you have to only own the land, but you can also lease land and also enter it into one of our programs. Must also be eligible and be in compliance for our highly erodible and wetland conservation compliance. Must make less than $900,000 in your annual gross income, and that's both on farm as well as off farm. And once again, just be an agricultural land and be an agricultural producer. No matter, once again, if it's private forest land, if it's regular crop land, pasture land, or whatever it may be. Next slide, please. Conservation technical assistance. As part of this particular process, NRCS likes to take the opportunities to visit with landowners actually own their operation, to walk that ground with you, to be able to identify what some of those conservation measures are that you all can identify together, and also learn more about what your intent is for your operation and what are your ultimate goals. As part of that, NRCS will work with you to develop a plan to identify how those resource concerns can be addressed, what practices can be implemented to address those resource concerns, as well as get you closer to reaching that goal that you have established. In this particular service, most people think that there's a fee for what we actually charge to perform this service and any of the services that we actually offer, and I want to be the first to tell you that it's already prepaid. If you're a taxpayer, your service is already paid, so don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call and ask us for assistance. We're here to serve you. Last but not least, a conservation plan can also be a tool that can help lead you into the appropriate financial assistance program that can help to take you even farther with your operation, address even further resource concerns, as well as provide you an opportunity to be able to enhance what you currently have in place. Next slide, please. The Environmental Quality Incentive Program. Many of the landowners that we work with, that I've worked with in Georgia as well as in North Carolina, often look at this program as quote unquote a fix-it program. Why is that? Because as we identify a resource concern, and if you are able to get selected for a contract for this particular program, it's focusing on specifically implementing those practices to address that resource concern that has been identified. Through the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, this is our most popular program that we offer through NRCS, not only in North Carolina, but also across the entire nation. This program is designed to identify those resource concerns and make that recommendation for the practices that will address it, but in turn also providing the financial assistance to assist you in implementing that particular practice. And it can vary from you actually wanting to do things such as cover crop if you're having cropland, or if you want to convert your cropland to pasture land, be able to help you plant that grass, installing fencing for rotational grazing, things of that nature. Or if you have forest land, you want to convert your cropland or pasture land into a forest, we can assist you in planting trees. Nonetheless, any of the practices that we recommend are all focused and based on addressing a resource concern. Next slide, please. This slide here identifies just a few of the practices that we actually have available within our program, EQIP, that are available to landowners. When we say just a few, we mean a few. In North Carolina, we have over 170 plus practices that are in our cost list that's available to landowners, with so many more scenarios that actually support each of those practices. With this particular platform being dedicated and surrounded around grazing, we wanted to highlight some of those practices that can benefit you as grazing landowners. Prescribed grazing being one, being able to install water facilities, pipeline, heavy use areas, and watering troughs. Pasture and hayland planting, as I mentioned earlier, fencing in order to incorporate implement prescribed grazing, to subdivide your fields and also perform rotational grazing. And in some instances, we can also provide assistance with installing wells. Those wells are actually designed so that we can fence the animals out of creeks to improve our water quality, but also provide them that alternative watering source. A few other practices that are listed are critical area planning for those heavily eroded areas, seasonal high tunnels for those that are looking to extend your growing season. And once again, if you're in a forested arena, being able to actually plant trees to establish forest land. Next slide, please. With EQIP, in any of our programs, there are some limitations that comes into play. And some of those limitations involves around what we can and actually be able to provide, how much funding we can provide a landowner throughout a farm bill. For EQIP, the contract term can go up to a maximum of 10 years. Nothing says that any landowner actually has to maintain a contract for 10 years. We highly encourage a landowner, if you're awarded a contract, to implement those practices as soon as you can, or as it actually is permissible for you to be able to get that resource concern addressed. But we can extend a contract up to a maximum of 10 years. In addition to that, the maximum payment that a participant is allowed to receive under any given farm bill is $450,000 under EQIP. What does that mean? That means if you actually apply and awarded a contract and you receive $200,000 on your first contract, that means you still have $250,000 left where you can apply for even additional assistance within that same farm bill. After each farm bill, that $450,000 payment limit starts over. So that $450,000 payment limit is per farm bill, which I think is very significant for most landowners to be aware of. If you are a producer and you have a partnership, whether it's you and an entity, as you and several other landowners are partnering together, you all are eligible to receive up to $900,000 in financial assistance per farm bill. So I think that's very important for those individuals that are collaborating and working together. This must be identified as part of that records that you established with the Farm Service Agency. So we wanted to make sure everyone is aware of how much funding you are eligible to receive and within a given farm bill, and also encourage you to take advantage of those funds that's available to you. Next slide, please. The next program we want to bring to your attention is the Conservation Stewardship Program. This particular program also addresses resource concern, but is more focused on enhancing what you currently have on the ground and encouraging you to do more. With the Conservation Stewardship Program, it is designed to, once again, take you to a higher level of management that you're currently doing on your operation. So what are the benefits to CSP? The benefits to CSP from a financial standpoint is NRCS will compensate you for the conservation measures that you already have in place at the time of your application, but also give you the opportunity to install more and receive financial assistance for the implementation of those additional practices. So throughout a given time frame, CSP offers a 5-year contract and with a maximum of up to $200,000, which we'll go into a little bit further. But this is a great opportunity for those landowners that are already established and actually looking to go above and beyond what they currently have in place. Next slide, please. With CSP, there's always some requirements that must be met in order to be eligible for every program. We briefly talked about the initial requirements for you to be able to participate in any of the programs that NRCS offers, but with CSP, there's a few additional requirements that must be met, which is what we call threshold requirements. With a threshold requirement, a landowner is required to meet at least 2 resource concerns at the time of their application and be willing to go above and adapt 1 additional resource concern being met by the end of that contract. So when we say 2 resource concerns at the time of application, this is where you, working with your local NRCS staff, to be able to identify what those 2 resource concerns may be, whether it be soil erosion, whether it be degraded plant condition, no matter what it may be, to be able to identify a minimum of 2 at the time when you submit that application. But in addition, be willing to encourage you to go above and beyond to address an additional resource concern that you're willing to address throughout the term of that particular 5-year contract. That is the minimum threshold that's required for CSP. Next slide, please. With CSP, there are payments that are actually offered. As I mentioned earlier, we offer a stewardship payment. We offer a resource concern payment, as well as a payment for the implementation of the additional activity that you're willing to install. When we talk about the stewardship payment, that's the payment that's offered to you for you willing to go to compensate you for what you've previously been implementing and the conservation measures that you've been doing on your farm at the time of your application. Your resource concern. With the identification of a resource concern, for every resource concern that's identified, there's a payment that's affiliated with that particular resource concern. That payment is $300 per resource concern. That's also incorporated into your contract and is offered to you as well. With your activity payment, that varies depending on the current rate for that particular activity that you're willing to implement to go above and beyond. That rate will also be a part of that contract. So all of that combined together contributes to the payment that you can receive under the Conservation Stewardship Program. Next slide, please. Just like with CSP, there is a payment limitation and a contract limit that we can offer when it comes to CSP participants. The maximum amount that a participant can receive under CSP is $200,000, and that is over a 5-year span, with a minimum payment of $4,000 no matter what. So I think that's very significant. That rate changed in 2024 from $1,500 to $4,000, which I think is a big plus for landowners, especially our small landowners that are able to capitalize and take advantage of this particular program. So being able to receive $200,000 on the Conservation Stewardship Program, and in addition, an additional $450,000 payment limitation under EQIP, that gives you a payment limitation between the 2 programs of $650,000. So many individuals take advantage of both programs, and you can have an EQIP as well as CSP contract at the same time, as long as we're not implementing the same practices in each of those contracts. Unfortunately, unlike EQIP, CSP does not qualify for what we call advanced payments. This is where NRCS allows us to provide you a certain percentage of the funding upfront to assist landowners in getting the practices implemented. Advanced payments are available under EQIP, but unfortunately, they're not available under CSP. Another thing that I want to mention when it comes to CSP, payments are rendered to landowners annually, once a year after October 1st. So if you apply for CSP and you receive a contract, you will not get paid for the work that you've performed until after October 1st, which is a big, sometimes it's a hurdle for landowners, but also this is where you have to actually take that into consideration when determining if this program is suitable for you and will address your needs based on your operation. Next slide, please. With NRCS and the programs that we offer, we try to provide a 5-step process to landowners to let them know how they can go about receiving assistance. First, we start off with our planning piece. This is where NRCS works with you and walks the farm to identify your resource concerns and also identifies what practices are available to assist you in addressing those resource concerns. And based on the identification of those resource concerns identified, then we can make recommendations to you about what programs are suitable and that can financially assist you in addressing those resource concerns. This is where step 2 comes into play with your application. Step 3 goes back to the eligibility piece, ensuring that every landowner is eligible as well as meet the necessary requirements to participate in NRCS programs and to make sure that they meet those criteria that's been identified earlier, with establishing records with FSA, to making sure you don't exceed the $900,000 in AGI, as well as the HEL and wetland compliance. The next step in that process is actually our ranking. Every application that's received throughout that process or that sign up for that fiscal year will go through a ranking process, where a series of questions that will be answered based on that land use and that particular team or fund pool that you're in, and which will develop a ranking score. That is how contracts are selected. We go from the highest ranking score in a certain ranking pool down to the lowest until we run out of funding. Lastly, step 5 is implementation. After you sign the contract, at that point, it's then up to you, the landowner, as to be able to get those practices implemented and on the ground. Once those practices have been installed, NRCS will come out and certify those practices, make sure they meet NRCS standards and specifications. And if so, then we start to render payment, which is typically deposited into your account within 7 to 10 business days. Next slide, please. Now, much of those step process, that previous slide talked about the process. Now I want to actually go through the full from application to approval. Like we said before, the first step is always to establish your records with the local FSA. The next thing is to visit with your local NRCS office. Get familiar with them. We highly encourage all landowners to create a relationship with your local office so that you can always pick up the phone, call your local NRCS personnel, say, hey, what type of programs do you guys have available that I can take advantage of? I have this issue on my farm. Is there anything that I can do with it? Establishing that relationship is critical, not just for what you need, but also so you can assist in passing that word on to your counterpart, other farmers that may be in your community or anyone that you're talking to at the local coffee shop. Being able to work with that local NRCS person to identify those resource concerns, where you have your mind focused on addressing soil erosion, or you have some runoff on your property. NRCS may be also able to identify and say, hey, do you have another issue on this side of the farm that maybe we can take advantage of as well? This is where that is extremely critical for you to work with them and invite them out to the property or your operation so they can look at everything holistically and be able to make proper recommendations. Next up, apply for program assistance. When you submit that application and you apply and you're asking them to participate in those programs, please know that none of the programs are guaranteed because of the ranking process and the availability of funding. But one thing I can guarantee you is that if you do not apply, you cannot be considered for assistance. However, that doesn't stop you from receiving the technical assistance. But once your application is submitted, it will then go into the regular scheduled application process where you're evaluated, ranked, and assessed to determine if your application ranked high enough, and also there's availability of funds to be able to reach your application to offer you a contract. Next is the pre-approval. Once the application is selected, You will be notified via letter as well as a phone call from your local NRCS person to identify that you've been selected to receive assistance. That is where you have that ability to determine if you want to proceed or if it's just not a good time for you and you would rather defer your application to another later date. After pre-approval, if you agree to move forward and receive a contract, NRCS will develop that contract and work with you throughout the full implementation of that contract and ensure that payments are rendered. I want to reiterate once again that participation in NRCS program is not guaranteed. It is a competitive process. However, we oftentimes try to reach as many individuals as possible, but that's also dependent upon the availability of funds that's been allocated to the state for those particular programs each fiscal year. Next slide. Application. With CSP and EQIP, we do establish application reception deadlines each fiscal year. As for fiscal year 26, we have not established those deadlines yet. However, one thing I want to make sure that everyone knows is that you do not have to wait on an application deadline in order to apply for any of our programs. If you decide today that this is something I'm interested in, you can go into your local NRCS office and submit your application, and it will already be in the system for evaluation as we move into FY26. So we encourage landowners, don't wait to see our application deadline if you're interested in applying. Establish that relationship and submit that application now. One thing about our application process, there's no penalty for it. If you decide you want to withdraw your application at any point prior to a contract, that's no problem at all. If you realize that I've submitted an application, but I'm not prepared to move forward, just converse with your local office and say, hey, I want to defer my application to maybe the 27th or to another sign up, or just say I want to cancel my application altogether, and we can work with you to do so. Whether you apply for financial assistance or not, always keep in mind that our technical assistance is always available to you. Next slide, please. Last but not least, I wanted to provide a couple of resources for everyone to be able to go and look at additional information that we provide when it comes to NRCS program, those in North Carolina, as well as those throughout the entire U.S. So the two websites that you see available, please, I encourage everyone to take a look at them. Look at the detailed information. This presentation was very brief, but there's so much additional information that can be shared with you. A lot of times it's dependent upon where you are. Each state administers the program different depending on what the state resource concerns are. So you want to get I want to encourage you to make contact with your local NRCS person to see what's available to you and also so you can take advantage of it. For anyone that has any additional questions, any concerns, or would like to obtain additional information about NRCS program, please feel free to reach out. What you see here is my phone number as well as my email address, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Next slide, please. With that said, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Silva, and if you guys have any questions, be available to them. Thank you guys for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Julius, for your presentation. So now we would like to open the floor for any questions that anybody has. If you'd like to unmute. I don't see any questions on the chat. So if anybody has any questions, please unmute yourself. Meanwhile, I'll just ask a few questions to each one of our speakers. So we'd like to start with you. You mentioned record keeping as an important tool for producers for several reasons, and this is definitely something that we try to emphasize for them. So I wanted to ask you, what would you think or suggest for producers and also agents to try to relay this to their producers? What would be the major points on a forage or livestock operation that they would need to try to keep notes on, or even pictures, especially thinking about extreme weather events, so drought, flooding, those type of things?
I think having documentation of your operations, whether that's livestock, forage, or any other agricultural commodities as well is really important. And I emphasized that a lot during that presentation. But for a lot of assistance programs, they need to see, the before and after photos. We can't just have the after photos. And then, you're showing the damage, but they don't know what was there beforehand. So being able to show the series, the timeline of what was lost, and that's why documentation is important. So we know, which species were planted, at what point of harvest were they at what point of growth, when they were planted, so that can help in assistance programs, that could help in crop insurance programs as well, of being able to estimate what that loss was. So lots of times people do just have those post-disturbance photos, but not the beforehand, not those records. So for all of our guides, we do emphasize the importance of that. So make sure to have that and make that an important part of your plan for preparing for any disturbances.
Sure. Thank you so much. So, Renee, for some of the tools that you mentioned, those were probably new tools for some of the audience, or even most of the audience, for both producers and agents. So what I was wondering, are there any trainings for using those tools, or even for further understanding how they could be a valuable tool for their operation or their programs in general?
Yes, so for the adaptation workbook, they usually have a free online course that is guided. So you can either do it on your own and have that guided resource, but they also have different courses throughout the year. So you would have to check their website and then review it to make sure to get a slot for that specific training. And then for the agroclimate, that also you have to look in to see if they have certain trainings at certain amount of times, or if there's certain locations that they will be at. But for the agroclimate, there's various different suites of tools. So you can just kind of go through each one, and it'll talk about each tool, and then you can make selections on based off of your location, the crop that you're currently growing, or just your different operation systems. And then for the soil salinization guide, we have the manual, and I haven't seen a training come up just quite yet, but we do have the manual itself, and then also online you can see different workshop trainings through YouTube or on our website. So you can view it there as well on how to use it and tailor it to your needs.
Sure, thank you so much. So moving forward, I see a question on the chat for Julius, and I don't know if he would like to answer just first. So the question is, does the USDA has an organic view, or for usually related to the conservation practices and other planning for practices, what use of chemicals and other things be included on that? And just as a background for you, Julius, so Diego Navas is attending from another country. So I think this is more on a point of understanding how usually USDA handles the regenerative point of view.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you, Diego, for that question. When it comes to organic producers, actually NRCS actually has an opportunity for organic producers, which allows them to compete against other organic producers, as well as those that are interested in transitioning from non-organic to organic. When it comes to situational recommendations of chemicals and things of that nature, NRCS is not necessarily a agency that actually has the I guess you say the expertise in those chemical recommendations. We often consult and work with our counterparts, such as the Cooperative Extension Service, and as well as other agencies, to make sure that recommendations that we are making to address pests or whatever pests that have been identified by that landowner that they're trying to eradicate, on what chemicals to utilize. So if you are organic, we will most definitely work with you to ensure that we're trying to find those chemicals that are considered to be organic or will meet that NOP to ensure that you do not violate your organic plan or that certification. So most of the time we are consulting with other individuals or other agencies to make sure that we can make the proper recommendation when it comes to applying chemicals to address any type of issue or pest that's on the ground, which is a great question. I hope I answered it for you, sir.
Sure, thank you. So, Julius, something else that I wanted to ask you, since you have a good experience working with producers throughout the years, I wanted to hear your thoughts on what you think that would be really helpful for producers when they are wanting to get to the office or get to the NRCS agent. What would be notes or information related to their operations that could help when they get to the office to really allow you to have a better understanding in case they don't have a conservation planning yet on their operation?
Yes, ma'am. Great question, Dr. Silva. One of the things I would recommend and highly is the best way for NRCS is a technical agency. So our work is pretty much done outdoors, and it is most effective when we are actually on the ground with the landowner itself. So the first thing I would do is make sure that that particular landowner encourages that landowner, that NRCS personnel, or invite that NRCS personnel out to the farm. It's oftentimes hard to describe completely what you want to, or what you're focused on, or what you're trying to address through an email or some form of writing. But when you're on the ground and you can clearly point out what those issues are and what you're trying to accomplish, that helps makes the difference. So the first step I would be is to have that NRCS person meet you on your farm. Therefore, you can clearly identify exactly what you're trying to do. At that point, that NRCS person should document that information and also be able to make the proper recommendations to you. There's no particular requirements by having photos or anything of that nature, but being able to identify to that NRCS person what your rotation of the crops may be, whether it be from the spring to the fall months, and or what your goal is, where you plan on taking your operation to. That will help to contribute to us being able to develop a proper conservation plan that will assist you, not only for financial assistance, but for anything else you're trying to accomplish. So the main thing is invite that person to the farm, and that's the best way to show them and to communicate what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure, thank you so much.
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
Alex, I see you start to answer a question that was on the chat already. So the question was, can small communities prepare for and contain floods by water harvesting? And the second question is that the person didn't see a list of suggested forage resistant resistant species. So would you like to expand what you're mentioning on the chat?
Yeah, I think I was clarifying to see if it was flood resistant forage species. Our hurricane guide does include a list of species that are salt tolerant to floods. I can look more into if you're looking for like freshwater forage as well. But we do have a list of those species that are tolerant to also just waterlogging, of being underwater for long periods of time as well. So I did go ahead and include the forage hurricane example. This one's for North Carolina, but we have them for the other states as well in that. And then water harvesting, it could always be a good idea. But, you know, when there are hurricanes and floods that are happening that are to an extreme level of what we've been experiencing, I think that at that point, the efforts should be put into just preparing and trying to minimize those losses of saving of what you have right now and trying to prepare for flooding. So drainage systems is going to be a better or just a way to help prevent that as well. And if you do have any questions, we can go ahead and email me and we can go ahead and see what would be the best resources for you. What are your local resources? To also go on your land and see, you know, have technical experts go to your land and see what is the situation and see what they can do to help build that resilience. But I can go ahead and send some more resources if anyone does need some.
Sure, thank you so much. So I don't see any other questions. We are past our time, but I would like to ask if our guest speakers have any final thoughts, if they would like to share any information.
Dr. Silva, the only thing I would like to offer is that I want everyone to know that these programs are available for you. Without your need for these programs, there's no purpose in us being here, but it also assists us in actually being able to request additional funding based on the interest that's being identified. So please, we encourage anyone to make sure you help to spread the word. Tell someone that may not be aware of who NRCS is. Take advantage of these programs. These are your tax dollars, so please take advantage of them. But I also want to say thank you to everyone that's in attendance, and I appreciate the opportunity to present before you guys today.
Yeah. And in addition to what Julia said, same for us as well. We're always looking to collaborate with community groups, with just community in general, trying to get the word out about different USDA agencies and programs that we do offer. And like we said, we're wanting to hear from the community so we know where to put our money towards, what resources are most needed from people. So please feel free to contact us. We are available. And we're always looking to do more presentations, more workshops, more opportunities to collaborate as well and get the word out there of just preparedness in general in the conservation field. And thank you all for coming as well. And it was great being able to chat with you all today.
I would also like to just mention something. Thank you so much, Alexia. One of the key takeaways I hope that the audience leaves with is that climate adaptation is not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a process that can be tailored to fit your local needs, especially in working lands like livestock and in forage systems. So if there's anything that you need, please reach out to us. As Alexia had mentioned, if you want to work with a workshop or designing a webinar, we're always looking for people to communicate with and create projects with. So don't feel free to reach out to us via email. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everybody that shared so much good experience with information with us today and experience as well. So let's thank our speakers, everyone. And we are about to wrap up our session for today. We still have another session, the last session of this series, on Thursday, same time. It's going to be a roundtable with our speakers for the last 3 sessions. So we're really excited to have that time as well. I hope you have learned and enjoyed the session today and are able to join us on Thursday as well. And I would like to thank our speakers again, and I hope everybody has a good day today. Thank you.